In this video, I want to talk about a new Visual Studio Code extension which I've just released specifically for Cake.Recipe. So Cake.Recipe is a set of convention-driven and very opinionated build scripts that I created, which allows the reuse of those scripts across multiple projects. I don't know about you, but when I'm doing builds for different projects, 9 times out of 10, I'm doing the same thing over and over again. Each of those projects wants to assert a version number. It wants to do some code compilation. It wants to run some unit tests. It wants to publish those code coverage metrics somewhere. It wants to announce releases. It wants to handle GitHub releases in terms of release notes, all those sorts of things. So rather than creating those build scripts for each project, I ended up creating Cake.Recipe, which allows those scripts to be used over and over again across multiple projects. Now it does that by wrapping those Cake build scripts up into a NuGet package that it can then ultimately be reused and consumed within each project. And the way that Cake.Recipe works is that it has a much smaller entry point, which then just kind of configures Cake.Recipe scripts to be specific for the project it's being used on. So what this extension in its current initial release does is provides a command to help set up that initial Cake.Recipe script. So the way that that works is if I go ahead and go to the command palette and do a search for Cake.Recipe, we'll find that there's one here that says set up default recipe.cake file. So the suggestion is that you use an entry point called recipe.cake. Now you can override that with your own name of your choosing. So I'm just going to go ahead with the recipe.cake. And then what you're going to be prompted with is some kind of project-specific information. So for example, what it's asking for here is where are the source files of this project located? Where are the .NET projects, or where is the source files that you want to actually run the Cake script on? So this could be something like src or source. I tend to use source, so I'm going to go with that. And what it's asking for here is what is the name of the owner or the organization of the GitHub repository that this project is being built against. So the reason it needs this is because Cake.Recipe handles things like creating a set of release notes and publishing milestones and closing milestones associated with release. So again, what I mentioned before is these are all convention-based and very opinionated scripts, and they do things in a specific way. So in order to do those things, it needs to know where that lives. So as an example, let's just say I'm working on a project within the Cake.Contrib organization on GitHub. So I'm going to put in Cake.Contrib there, and then let's just say, for the sake of argument, that I'm working on one that I know exists, the Cake.Twitter project within the Cake.Contrib organization. So if I go ahead and do that, what it's going to create for me is this recipe.cake file, and in here it's already pre-configured all of kind of the default setup that you would have when you're using Cake.Recipe. It's already downloading the latest version of the Cake.Recipe NuGet package. It's setting up some parameters, which is what I mentioned before, the repository owner name, repository name, all those sorts of things. And then the default, it's set up some default tool settings for things like code coverage and unit testing. So these are the things I have to do over and over again when I set up each project that I'm working on. But rather than doing it by just copying and pasting from the previous project, I've now got a command that I can use that will help in those needs. So obviously I don't have a project here, but I can start filling that out quite quickly by grabbing a PowerShell bootstrapper, which would need to be modified slightly to work with Cake.Recipe, but that's where I would start to extend this extension to have additional functionality to automatically update the bootstrappers to work with this new recipe.cake file. So I've got some plans around how this is going to work and how it's going to be extended. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, so feel free to reach out if you have any questions about it. But for now, I just wanted to have a very brief introduction of what this is and how it can be used. So hopefully this will be of use to you. Thank you very much.